from MS Translators. Brett here, and you know me quite well, but it's my great pleasure today to be joined by Professor Helen Tremlett from the University of British Columbia. Now, some of you may remember Helen from a couple of years ago when we met at ACTRIMS in Berlin, and we recorded an interview under quite different circumstances, but here doing it in the virtual setting. So Helen actually gave the plenary lecture, the opening lecture at the recent MS Virtual 2020 meeting, and so it's a great privilege and honour to have Helen join us today to talk about that work. Helen, thank you again so much for your time. Maybe can I get you to start just by giving us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and the overview of the research that you do?
No, I'm thrilled to be here, so thanks for the invite. So I'm Helen Tremlett. I'm a professor in neurology at University of British Columbia in Vancouver in Canada. I'm the Canada Research Chair in Neuroepidemiology and Multiple Sclerosis. Sorry, a bit of a mouthful. So I have a team of researchers, and we're very much involved with MS epidemiology. So what does that mean? We try and look at clinically relevant questions, so questions that are meaningful to clinicians and people with MS, and we try and do that on a population-based level so that we can make our findings as generalizable as possible to the wider MS population. So I hope that's clear, and maybe it'll become clearer when I talk about the prodrome, which I know this is what our conversation is about.
Yeah, definitely. So as you said, you gave a talk at MS Virtual 2020, a lot of pressure being the opening talk of the meeting, but it was fantastic, and you talked about the MS Prodrome. Now, for people that may not be aware, can you just explain to us what a prodrome is?
Yes, I will do my best. So sort of a definition of a prodrome would be symptoms that occur before classic onset of disease. So in the context of multiple sclerosis, if you can imagine, onset of MS is the date of MS symptom onset. Now, when is MS symptom onset? Typically that's something that the neurologist will have a conversation with the person with MS to try and ascertain that earlier symptom that they think was actually related to their MS. So most people know when their MS symptom onset date is. They may not always agree with that date, but they tend to know when that is. Say with MS, it may be something like an optic neuritis, so issues with vision. So what we were looking at is the years leading up to MS symptom onset. So you're not supposed to have any symptoms that are indicative of MS, but we were looking at the years leading up to MS symptom onset, and we were comparing those years to people in the general population who were matched but didn't have MS, so they're matched for age and sex and important things like that. And we were accessing our health system related information, so we could look at hospitalizations, physician visits, and prescriptions filled in those years, and we specifically looked at 5 years leading up to MS symptom onset. Now, this is, just to say it again, this isn't MS diagnosis, this is MS symptom onset. So before diagnosis. So I have to say, I love going into a room of people with MS, explaining what the prodrome is, and then saying, okay, think about yourself. Could you tell me any symptoms or odd things that went on in your life that in hindsight you attribute to your MS, meaning you think you actually probably already had MS there, unexplained things that happened. And people usually invariably come up with a whole bunch of symptoms. You know, I tripped, I fell, I was tired, and so on and so forth. And sure enough, when we look at those years, those 5 years leading up to MS symptom onset, we found that people who developed MS were more likely to be hospitalized in those 5 years before MS symptom onset, more likely to visit a physician, more likely to fill a prescription, relative to people in the general population who didn't have MS, don't have any kind of related condition. So that was published in the Lancet Neurology in 2017. And then, of course, the big question is all right, that's nice. So you show that something's going on during this time frame, but why? Why are people being hospitalized? Why are they accessing the health system and filling all these prescriptions? So then we went on to do a second study to look at that. And in short, we find a huge range of issues going on there, from pain, headache, migraine, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, sleep disturbances, and some really fascinating ones that I was not expecting. We found more visits to dermatologists, which I can speak to if you're interested. And here's another really interesting one. We found women were less likely to have a pregnancy, more likely to fill an oral contraceptive, a prescription for an oral contraceptive, and it particularly spiked in the year before MS symptom onset. Oh, and I should have mentioned, we also found a significant mental health burden during that time frame as well. We found 50% more visits to psychiatrists by people in that 5 years before MS symptom onset, and we found 50% more diagnoses of things like depression and anxiety, just by physicians in general, for people in those 5 years before MS symptom onset relative to the general population.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, firstly, having already talked briefly about your work at the end of the conference, I've already had a number of people from our community come up and say, yes, this very much mirrors my experience. There's so much that was happening before that first onset that I can relate to. But I think what's also...
sorry to talk over. I should probably back up and say that it's quite interesting because historically, if you go to the lead medical textbooks in multiple sclerosis, they actually declared that the prodrome didn't exist. So I think the field of MS has been quite slow to pick up on this prodromal feature and show that it exists, whereas other conditions, say like with Parkinson's disease or others, it's been long established that there's a significant prodromal phase for other diseases. So it's quite interesting that it's only really come to light recently for MS.
Yeah,
I interrupted you.
Yeah, not at all. I think what's really interesting about this is that a lot of these symptoms that you found being part of this prodromal phase are symptoms that continue on well beyond an MS diagnosis, but often there is a tendency to think that these symptoms may just be part of, well, of course you have this, you're living with multiple sclerosis, so we know that there's increased rates of mental health conditions in people living with MS, such as depression and anxiety and things like this, and often these are put down to, just really being a byproduct of living with multiple sclerosis. But I think it's interesting finding them in this prodromal phase indicates that they may be much more related to what's actually going on behind the scenes in terms of the disease process. Would you agree with that?
You know what, it could be both. Definitely, I think both could be playing into it. I know that when so first of all, we know from the wider literature that inflammation, which is synonymous with MS, is associated with increased risk of depression. Classic is when you have like a viral infection, all you want to do is just lie down and sleep, and you're lethargic. It's a similar kind of body reaction. So absolutely, depression and mental health related issues can be directly related to inflammation. But at the same time, when I speak to people with MS, if you've got all of these odd symptoms going on and no one really knows what's wrong, and you suspect there's something wrong but you can't figure it out, you've got pain or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised if some of that then is associated with depression and anxiety. So I think it's potential for both.
Yeah, okay. So I guess, we've already sort of touched upon a little bit that a big thing for people living with MS about hearing about this is going to almost be a little bit of justification of vindication for all of the things that they felt and maybe didn't know what they were before the MS diagnosis. and obviously feel free to comment on that a little bit. But beyond that, what are the other sort of outcomes of this work that you see for people living with MS?
So the so what question, implications, I think twofold. So one piece, we can do something with this now. So if you want to know what causes multiple sclerosis, you have to be really mindful, or researchers have to be really mindful of this prodromal phase, because you don't want to misinterpret these symptoms of the prodrome with something that causes multiple sclerosis. Because I would argue that these people already have MS, it just hasn't been diagnosed or fully recognized yet. So a classic example is the pregnancy piece. So we found that in the years leading up to MS symptom onset, women were less likely to have a pregnancy, more likely to fill a prescription for an oral contraceptive. And I interpret that not meaning that pregnancies are related to your risk of developing MS or not developing MS, but these women are making lifestyle changes because they have all these unexplained symptoms and issues going on, and this mental health burden and so on and so forth. So they're making that decision to delay a pregnancy or delay starting a family. So I think researchers can do something now with this information and try and get away from, if you want to know what causes multiple sclerosis, you need to be mindful of the prodromal phase so you don't confuse the two. I hope this is coming across all right with the interview.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, that worked perfectly. Yeah,
and I think, go on.
Well, I think that's really important, because if we're looking at trying to identify changes that may be occurring, that may be leading to multiple sclerosis, if we're looking at onset, what we've traditionally called onset, we may be too late to be seeing some of those changes. And knowing this and hearing the outcomes of your research, I think it's really important to think about what are the windows that we're looking at here if we want to try and capture what's happening.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And so then the second piece, implications. Now, this is a long, lofty goal, requires a lot more work, but it does beg the question, could we use this information to recognize MS earlier, diagnose MS earlier, and maybe even then implement interventions or changes in someone's lifestyle that might even reduce their risk of developing MS, full-blown MS itself, maybe, or can we introduce interventions that might have a long-term neuroprotective or beneficial effect for people who are going on to develop MS? People in other conditions such as Parkinson actually now enroll people in clinical trials with prodromal Parkinson disease to give them these medications very early in the disease that they hope will benefit people long term. Maybe we could do something similar for MS, but we're a long way away from that. We don't have any useful or validated criteria that could reliably identify someone in this prodromal phase. So there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah, and I guess, we're getting more and more information now that's showing earlier treatment and more powerful treatment can have significant long-term benefits. The idea of maybe being able to get in even earlier, who knows what the outcomes may be to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it'd be interesting to consider this. It does bring up a lot of ethical implications. You don't want to over-diagnose and over-treat people, so it does require a lot of careful consideration. So we're still a long way to go, but that's a lofty goal.
Yep, definitely. I guess that's the last couple of things that we had here to discuss. Next steps for this research, but also are there other research projects going on at the moment in your lab? I know we talked about something very different when we were in Berlin, so I know you've got a lot of different areas that you're looking into that you may want to mention briefly for that people might be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, some of the next steps, we're actually trying to get additional funding to sort of continue the prodromal work. The MS Society of Canada are actually interested in funding us, but they want a partner, so we're trying to look for a partner for that piece. But the MS Society of Canada have want to fund this study, but because of the pandemic, their funds are down, so they want a partner. So at the moment we're looking for someone else to come in and co-fund the study. So,
okay. Well, if anyone is watching this who is, I mean, this is fantastic research. We can do our little plug. You've given up your time in Vancouver.
And it's not, I'm not talking multi-million dollars. This isn't a necessarily expensive study. I think Canadian and Canadian and Australian dollars are equivalent, but the whole study is 600,000 Canadian dollars. So we're looking for someone to come in with 300,000, but anything would do. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully someone's watching that can help with this, because I think, I mean, it's very clear to us, and I'm sure it will be very clear to the community as well watching this, that this is really important, really exciting work that's going on at the moment.
Other work we've got going on, actually a lot of studies. One area I love talking about is the gut microbiome. So we are sequencing poop samples, samples of children with multiple sclerosis, and comparing them to kids who don't have MS. Now, fortunately, MS is very rare in children, so which is obviously a good thing. From the research perspective, they're very valuable because you can get these children very close to their MS symptom onset versus an adult who may be in their 30s or 40s by the time their MS is recognised, and they've had a whole lifetime of exposures. And by that I mean things like diet and exercise and occupation and so on and so forth, whereas children have led less complicated lives, you know, in the scheme of things. So gut microbiome is a very big area for our team.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that that's something that our community is very interested in, so I'm sure we'll follow up with you on that at some stage.
It's fascinating.
It really is.
No, thank you very much for your interest. It's appreciated.
Yeah. So thank you again very much for your time. Thank you for putting up with the internet issues that we've experienced during this.
I hope it wasn't at my end.
No. It's been fantastic. So thank you for your time. I know that the MS community really appreciates it. I'm sure they will be very interested, and we look forward to continuing to provide updates on your work well into the future.
Yeah, no, Brett, thank you. Thanks for covering this, and thanks for your interest, and thanks for your willingness to get up so early in the morning.
No worries at all. Thanks.
All right, cheers. Bye-bye.